Greetings, gang. Welcome back. Marky here from my Kosovan jail cell, as so many of you have so eloquently put it in the comments, so thank you so much for that. As always, I do hope you're ready for some beautiful Reddit readings on the Marky channel today, and as Evil Marky would say, remove a prawn from the barbecue. Enjoy today's episode. Posted by user PickledCarrot19, titled, Am I the asshole for cancelling my family trip on short notice? I, 32 female, moved away from my home state about 5 years ago. In June of this year, my husband, 33 male, and I welcomed a baby boy. He's the first and only grandchild on my side. My husband and I decided to fly back to my home state to spend Christmas with my family. My parents were excited and assured us that they would get the house baby ready. My parents live in a 4-bedroom house. My parents have the master, and the other 3 rooms belong to my sisters and me. But now that my folks are empty nesters, the rooms are unused except for occasional visits. They kept my sisters' rooms relatively the same, but they turned my old room into my dad's office. I was a little sad, but it's not my home anymore, and I don't get to dictate how other people utilize their house. But in my 11 by 8 foot childhood room, there is now a queen-size bunk bed, dresser, desk, chair, and side table. That alone makes it cramped. But since my dad is very disorganized, there's usually also paperwork on every surface, including top bed bunk, and random crap from the house. It's basically a storage closet with a bed. It is so cluttered that the floor isn't even visible most of the time. 2 weeks ago, I asked if we could not stay in my old room. My parents didn't even entertain it. They said that that's where I've always stayed when I've visited, and I've never had an issue with it. Except I have always taken issue with it, I just never said anything. I explained that there is no room for 2 adults and a pack and play in there, but my mum just said that they would make it work. The next day, my mum sent me a picture of the room with a pack and play in it. The bed took up the last bit of floor space. I showed it to my husband, and we agreed that that would not work for us. I let my parents know that we would figure something else out. But after looking into local hotels, we decided to cancel the trip altogether. My parents live in a very touristy place, and getting a hotel for a week on short notice was more than we could afford. I broke the news to my parents, and they were not happy. They said I was overreacting and the room would be fine. I told them that we would miss them, but we couldn't afford a hotel, and in order for the room to be usable, the floor has to be at least a little visible. They then asked if that meant we would never be visiting, and I said, I don't know if we will never visit, but I do know that we will never stay in that room as long as it's in that condition. If it got decluttered, or you allowed us to stay in a different room, or if we saved up enough for a hotel, then we could visit. Now my entire family is mad at me. My parents told the extended family that we were coming, and now they have to tell them that we are not. They're also sad that they won't get to see their grandson like they planned. My sisters are also calling me entitled for being picky about a free place to stay, and then expecting one of them to take the crappy room. Am I the asshole? In the comments, question, are your sisters staying with your family? Do they have children? And OP replies, both are single but are very protective over their space. My parents knew they would be upset if their childhood rooms changed too much. So apart from my parents taking down some posters and adding more neutral art, their rooms are pretty much the same. I'm more easygoing, and they knew that I wouldn't pitch a fit if they turned my room into an office. How old are your sisters? Why are they so territorial over their high school rooms? OP says, sisters are 35 and 26. They both have a tendency to think that I'm the favorite, so changing either of their rooms into an office and leaving mine untouched would probably have started an argument. They're also very particular. They like their spaces to be a certain way and don't like people touching their stuff, so maybe they would have felt like their old room being completely changed would be an invasion of privacy. But I haven't confirmed this with them. I guess I'm psychoanalyzing. On the other rooms, OP says, all the rooms are vacant, but when we visit, we stay in the rooms that we grew up in. There were a couple of times when I visited my parents alone, and they let me stay in a different room, but that's only because my dad would wake up early and needs his office for work. but my dad will not be working for the rest of the year, and my sisters are visiting for Christmas at the same time, so we're all expected to stay in our old rooms. Can you stay with extended family if they're being weird about this too? OP says, extended family all live about an hour away. We are all gathering at my grandparents' house on Christmas, so that's when the rest of the family would have met them. The rest of the families have full houses. All my cousins either still live at home or are visiting home for the holidays. I'm sure some of my cousins wouldn't mind sharing a room in their home so that I could take one of their rooms, but I don't think it's reasonable to expect someone to host a family of 3 on short notice by relocating one of my cousins in their own home. I also want to point out that I am not getting any grief from aunts, uncles, or cousins. They all understood traveling cross-country with a baby can be difficult. Can you just move stuff when you get there? OP says, I mean, we technically could, but I honestly don't want to show up at their house after a full day of traveling with an infant just to rearrange furniture. Personally, I believe that if you really want a baby to come visit your home, then you need to make that home baby-friendly before they arrive. Firm Psychology says, not the asshole. If your sisters acknowledge that it's a crappy room, then they should understand that it's crappier for 3 people rather than 1. You offered 2 easy alternatives, different room, decluttered room, and the response was essentially, no, too bad. I wouldn't stay in that case either, as disappointing as it is to miss out on family gatherings. Are her sisters married with kids? If not, 100% they're awful. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Them not making a sincere effort to declutter your room so it can accommodate 2 adults and an infant, or either of your sisters sucking it up and taking the crappy room, shows that they clearly aren't that excited to see their grandchild and host your small family. It really wasn't a huge ask of you, and I think you have a right to be hurt that they couldn't at least clean up a little or offered up a different room. Not the asshole. Your needs are different now. If it was just you and your husband, I might lean towards saying, it's not ideal, but just suck it up for a few days and deal with the inconvenience. But you've got a baby to consider now, and if the room arrangement is going to cause issues with your son's care, then you have to put him first and decline, as you did. I'm not sure why your parents are so fixed on you using the office and your old bedroom, and not another room in the house. Maybe it's worth one more attempt to get them to see sense and make adjustments for your new family setup, perhaps by asking your sisters to make it clear that they don't mind sacrificing the occasional use of their own former bedrooms in the best interests of their young nephew. If your sisters won't do that, or if your parents still won't listen, there may not be much that you can do. I really find it hard to believe that you're the favorite or the golden child in this circumstance if nothing is going your way, if there is no leverage at all being made for you, especially considering the fact that a young child, their grandkid, which should give you even more special privileges, is coming. This just tells me that your parents aren't reasonable or good people. Because my thought process, if I was in their shoes, if I was to still be an asshole and tell you not to come, I wouldn't make it your problem that I have to tell everyone that you've decided not to come. I'll just be like, hey, you know what? Fine. I'm going to go tell everyone that you can't come. It's all right. We'll sort this out. The fact that they refused to even declutter the room and they just shoved all their shit in there. They've had kids before in this house. They can't, empathize with the fact that that's such a shit setup and it's not good for the kid. OP, does anyone in this family actually like you? Because at the slightest bit of inconvenience, they're putting a shotgun at your head instead of slightly bending over backwards to help you. I don't think this is a situation where you cut them off and go low or no contact with them. Just don't go and make them come to you instead for the next holidays if they want to see their grandkids. I'd honestly be so embarrassed if I was your partner in this situation being like, God, they hate you. Why are they doing this? Let's just go to my family instead. They don't suck like yours. And now, on to the update. Before I start, I want to say thank you for all the advice from my previous post. I decided to take Reddit's advice and talk to them one more time about the situation. I called my parents and let them know that we love them and we really want to be there for Christmas. Being so far from my family during my entire pregnancy was really difficult, and I had been looking forward to this trip for a long time. I explained again that I know that it's not my room anymore, but if they want us to travel cross-country with an infant to visit, then they need to at least make a small attempt to make the home baby-friendly. Our baby can't crawl yet, so they wouldn't even need to baby-proof. All we asked for was a reasonable space for the baby and us to sleep in. They cut in, saying they have a room for us, but we decided that it wasn't good enough. I asked them if they would feel comfortable with me sending pictures of the room to our extended family as an explanation for our absence. They said no, because it's inappropriate to air out our business. We ended the call by saying all we need is for them to clear out some floor space to make the room more livable. The next day, I got a picture from my mum of the room. They tidied it up. It was still a bit cramped, but it was usable. From the room, they removed an old TV, a swamp cooler, a big stack of old paperwork from the floor, a broken printer, a broken clock, a stack of clothes, the desk chair, extra blankets, and pillows that don't fit in a linen closet, the broken bunk bed ladder, and a large broken picture frame. All of these things were previously either on the top bed bunk or on the floor. With all this junk removed, it was actually possible to walk into the room. I thanked my mum and told her that since we had not officially cancelled our flight tickets, we would love to still attend Christmas. My parents are not used to being called out, so whenever it does happen, usually by me, they get defensive, but then they later change their attitude and act better. The lack of an apology didn't really bother me since they adjusted their behaviour. They never addressed the room situation, but they cleaned it up and went above and beyond during our visit to make us feel welcome. I guess they just needed some time to think about it. The trip itself was great. The closet and dresser drawers were still crammed with junk, but that didn't matter since we were just living out of our suitcases during the trip. My extended family got to meet my son. There hasn't been a baby in my side of the family for 20 years, so my son got lots of love and attention. He also had the chance to play in the sand and put his toes in the water of the beaches I grew up in. In the comments, my boss thinks I'm working says, "Out of curiosity, were your sister's other 2 bedrooms being used at the time? Did your sisters also come? Or would it have been possible for you to stay in them, but they just didn't want you to?" OP says, "Both sisters were visiting at the same time and used their old bedrooms. Neither of them wanted to sleep in my old room. My parents knew they wouldn't want to, which is why they never even bothered to ask them." So your sister's comfort is more important than your family's. Got it. Quote, "I asked them if they would feel comfortable with me sending pictures. They said no because it's inappropriate to air out our business." You know they were lying. They knew that if you sent out photos, everyone would see the shameful conditions and they'd lose the PR advantage. But you know what? Now that you know that they're so strongly motivated by what other people think of them, feel free to mash that button as often as needed. I like how it was completely appropriate to air out the business that OP was cancelling their trip last minute, but inappropriate to go into any details as to why. Rules for thee and not for me. Looking at the list of old and broken stuff that was removed, your parents' behavior in this is baffling. You'd think that they would have been able to see the problem for themselves without you having to say anything, or even just a mild comment that a pack and play wasn't gonna fit. Sure, you were willing to put up with it when you were single or just a married couple, but at that point you were probably only using the room to sleep and change. The lack of space was an annoyance, but one that could be tolerated. Kids often change our perspectives on stuff like that. I will say, while it sounds like you got some fixes to happen that were good enough for this year, more work or alternate solutions will probably still be needed down the road. In part, because the space doesn't sound workable for your family once your kid is mobile, but also in part because your sisters sound unwilling to make compromises to help accommodate your family's needs. Down the road, you may still end up needing to do hotels. And I'm just here thinking, what the hell is a swamp cooler? So I googled it, and it's most likely that it got its name because after time they smell like a swamp. What in tarnation? Why would you want a cooler that makes your room smell like shit? And why is this family so cool to hoard so much junk but make it your problem? This was such an easy fix. I don't understand why people have to be so difficult. But after all is said and done here, I am very happy that you guys are able to come to an amicable solution together and fix everything here. I would love to know what your parents did to go above and beyond during your visit to make you feel welcome, because to me it sounded like previous to this, they went above and beyond to make you unwelcome and to piss you off, and to stonewall you and berate you as much as possible. So I'd really love to know where this saintly behavior is coming from. Otherwise, definitely keep that suggestion from another commenter as to the opinions of others moving mountains for you in this situation, because that is going to come in very handy in the future, I'd imagine. Our next post is by user Numerous Cycle 1895, titled, "Am I the asshole for cursing at my niece when she went into my office when I specifically told her that it was off limits to guests? My 28 male, sister 33 female, is visiting me this week with her daughter/my niece 13 female. I was excited to host them in my house, as I haven't really seen my family much ever since I moved away from our home state for my career. For context, I'm a lawyer at a large firm. That means that I have to take work home often, which is why I have a room in my house set up as an office. My room has privileged information about cases and clients. Long story short, when my sister and niece arrived yesterday, and after I helped them get settled in, I told them that there's only one rule that I have for staying in my house. My office is off limits. Fast forward a few hours, and everything's fine and dandy. I'm just sitting on the couch with my sister, watching a movie, until I get a call from a senior associate at work asking me to do a quick review of a document that he sent me via email. When I get upstairs, I see that the door to my office is wide open and the lights are on. When I go in to investigate, my niece is sitting there in my chair and taking selfies with her feet on my desk. I was beyond furious. I only have one rule for guests at my house, and it's to stay out of my office. I have that rule for a reason. Not only would I be at risk of disbarment, but the integrity of the entire case would be jeopardized if any of that information is leaked. While I'm not accusing her of that specifically, I just don't want uninvolved people in my office taking pictures and posting them on social media where they may or may not be protected information in view of the camera. I asked her what the hell she was doing, and she said, "I was just curious. I want to be a lawyer like you when I grow up." I told her to get the F out and stay out, you little bit. My sister came running up the stairs after my niece started crying, and she told me that I was a monster for talking like that to a kid. I told her that she had no business being in my office, and my sister said that it doesn't matter because she's just a kid. So, am I the asshole? In the comments, he who is person says, "She's 13. She was intentionally violating the rule. But still, what's wrong with you? Everyone sucks here." Our solo practitioner, appeals and post-conviction work in appointed criminal cases only, has this to say: "I would think a fancy-pants big firm attorney who has a bunch of privileged crap in their home office just like I do would put a effing locking knob on the door and/or keep all materials in locked cabinets when not in active use. You are not adequately protecting these materials. Sure, your front door locks, but once someone is in the house, apparently they could easily get into the stuff without you noticing in time." LaDancer22 says, "It's calling her a bear that majorly crosses a line for me. Get the F out is a bit extreme, but she did intentionally break rules and is old enough to understand that she was breaking the rules. Calling a 13-year-old child you bear is extreme, personal, unnecessary asshole behavior." Yeah, my daughter can be a huge pain in the ass, but I feel like anyone who called her a bear would be dead to me. Sorry to say, but this kind of name-calling points towards a certain attitude towards women in general, and possibly some anger issues also. Everyone sucks here. A 13-year-old is old enough to understand that a certain room is off limits and not go in there, but calling her a bear is taking it way too far. As a lawyer, you should have a much better grip on handling stressful situations without losing your cool. Lastly, why was she taking pictures of her feet? Edit, OP has clarified that was poor phrasing. She was sitting with her feet up, taking selfies. Nah, I think OP's the asshole here. He should have a lock on that door. His reaction was beyond inappropriate too. OP is an asshole, but that doesn't change the fact that 13 is plenty old enough to respect the one rule in the house. Everyone sucks here is appropriate. OP's last two comments, the first, most heavily downvoted, being, "Listen, I've worked hard for 3 years in law school to get this job, and I'll be damned if I lose it over something this stupid. Maybe I was a little harsh in my choice of words, but I won't apologize for telling her off." A bit later, OP says, "Thanks for your comment. I'm going to talk to her later today and try to make it a teachable moment about the profession. To be honest, I didn't mean any of that when I said it, I was just angry and it slipped." The thing is that you're a lawyer, OP, and like they said, you're supposed to be able to handle these stressful situations. You're expected to have tact and class in these situations. It doesn't matter if you're angry, it didn't just slip. That was an intentional choice that you made to call a 13-year-old girl the B word. As a lawyer, and as someone with a brain, you should know that that's harmful, that really does hurt people's feelings. Don't try and excuse your behavior. There really is no excuse for it. You were just a bad person in that instance, and you should be better next time. That's not to say that the 13-year-old isn't at fault either, but they're 13 years old, they're known for breaking rules, they're known for doing shit that's going to piss you off. But you can choose how you react in situations like this. If you use it as an excuse to just run your mouth like that, I don't know if I would respect a sister or a brother like that, you know? I think I, as a sibling, would be very disappointed and pissed off at you. It might start offloading a lot of, bad things your way. My judgment, everyone sucks here for this one. But the teenager is the lesser of two evils. And now for the update. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting this post to get this many responses, so I first wanted to start off by thanking each and every one of you for taking the time to read my post and weigh in with your judgment. Even the people that sent me death threats in the DMs, you know who you are. Special thanks to those who sent their judgments via DM when the mods locked down the thread. After reading the comments and having time to cool down and think about all this, I accepted that I was an asshole in this situation. While I was right to be mad, I overreacted and made the situation something that it wasn't. This is also a wake-up call for me to stop being lazy and do a better job of securing my documents. I'll admit that the inconvenience of locking everything down led me to become sloppy. Not anymore. I've already ordered a lock for my office door and a fireproof safe for my paper files. My desk has lockable drawers, and my computer is password protected. I'm also seriously considering a security camera. Last night, I probably spent 20 minutes apologizing to both my niece and sister. I promised that I would never yell at her or use that type of language towards her ever again. She accepted my apology. We gave each other a hug, and she also apologized for being in the office. My sister forgave me as well. I also took them out to their favorite restaurant. My niece and I had a conversation over dinner about the importance of attorney-client privilege and the secure handling of confidential information, two things that are extremely important if she's serious about becoming a lawyer. She seemed genuinely curious, and I answered all of her questions that I could about the types of cases that I handle. When we got home, I decided to surprise her. I showed her around the office, and I let her take another picture at my desk after I put away all of my sensitive files, of course. Thanks, Reddit. OP. In the comments, Gaiden Daishin says, "When I do any form of teaching, training, and mentoring, I mention the rule and the consequences of breaking the rule. People do not understand the gravity of breaking rules unless you lay out what will happen if they break the rules." Same with safety regulations. Tell students that they shouldn't wear contacts or sneakers in lab, and many will do it regardless. Tell them what happens if bass gets into them, or even show pictures works better. No locks, files all over the place and out in the open, doesn't check the phone for pics, cusses a teen. Sounds like one of those bumbling sitcom lawyers that's just there to look incompetent. I move for a bad court thingy. Objection, Your Honor. That hurt my client's feelings. I hope he's specializing in contracts. If he is this easy to rattle, trials are going to be rough. Also, even inside law firms, privileged information should be secured appropriately. You have other clients in, cleaners, etc. Exactly what I was thinking. If this is how he treats opposing counsel, the judge will not be happy with him. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Remove a prawn from the barbecue.